Hi, good evening. Mazal tov, Etgar. And sorry if I'll be confused because I'm a writer and usually I talk about myself and it's so difficult for me to talk good things about other people. When I, when I was so happy that Edgar won the award because of because I've learned so many things from Edgar as a friend. Although we usually meet in conferences and on airplanes and trains somehow. Uh, but when I first was approached to write a recommendation letter about Edgar, I was so thrilled about it. Like finally I can write about the writers that I admired so much when I was young, much younger. And the writer that, thanks to his Hebrew and his humor, I thought, if he's a writer, I can do it also. With Hebrew, I mean, it's a revolution. The Hebrew was such a national, holy language. I'm not a native Hebrew speaker, of course. I'm Palestinian citizen of Israel. So I was so thrilled to write about the books. Once I was asked, actually, to name the three best Israeli books by a newspaper, I don't know, 50 years of something. And I just named the first three short story collection books by Etgar Keret. So I always loved Edgar, the writer, and I'm doing my best to teach at least 4 or 5 short stories to my students in the University of Illinois in Urbana-Champaign. So I was really looking forward to write about Edgar, the writer. And the Bronfman Award, that was the first time that I hear about that. Sorry, I'm not Jewish. And so I Googled it because I wanted him to win. Because he promised me, Edgar is the one who promised me, like, if the situation will be that bad, we can always travel around the cities around the world and give some kind of a freak show of a Palestinian talking to Israeli, which is great. And so I'm counting on him. So I Googled the Bronfman Award, and it says that the award is for Jewish values. I said, oh my, is he kidding me? What are the Jewish values? How can I tell what are the Jewish values? Should I like look at the government of Israel? No, but that's no way gonna guarantee the award for my friend. What are Jewish values? I don't know what are Jewish values. So I read his books again. It's the few books that I took with me when I packed during the war in Gaza and left Jerusalem. I read it's just wonderful literature, but I cannot tell what are Jewish values. Although Etgar in one of the interviews claimed that Sayed Kashua is the last Jewish writer in Israel, but still, I'm not Jewish, and they always thought, actually, that Etgar Keret and Haron Appelfeld were never notified that the state of Israel, that there is no diaspora any longer. So for me, they were the last Jewish writers in Israel. And it's different from Israeli writer, by the way. So I Googled that and I know what are Jewish values. So I said, I'm gonna use my students. So I went to the advanced Hebrew class, and I asked my students to write the next essay about Jewish values to see. And all of them just wrote about college and get married with a Jewish girl and boy. I could say, yes, probably. He went to college and he's married to Shira. She's a wonderful Jewish girl. But I don't think that would guarantee him the award. And and they really wanted him to win. But I have I don't know what are Jewish values because I learned so much from Edgar as a friend and as a writer. First of all, I learned from Edgar never to wear a suit. That's the reason I don't have a suit today. I remember it was in Milan, and my father told me it was a conference in Milan, and my father told me Italians love suits. You have to buy a suit and a tie. It was the second time after my wedding that I buying a tie and a suit. And I remember just in the lobby of the hotel, in our way to the conference in Milan, Edgar looks at me. What are you wearing, man? I said, a suit. It's Italy. It's Milan. And he said, but you look like a refugee from Iraq. So since then, I don't wear any suits. And then I learned from him, because he was always traveling. I said, it's always conference. I'm carrying this big, refugee suitcase and, going through security. And Edgar, we're the same amount of time. We're staying 1 week in the same hotel, in the same conference, and he's traveling with a small shirt. I said, how you do that? He said, well, my father, my father is like your father. Your father is a Nakba survivor, and my father is a Holocaust survivor, and he taught me that with a good deodorant, you can travel the world with one shirt if you have the right perfume. So I learned that. It's valuable. And because of Edgar, he told me once that his father told him that people survived because those who took a coat. And he told me, always take a coat when you leave home. And since then, even it's in summer in Jerusalem, I never leave home without a coat. And also because of Edgar and our parents, we lost our beloved fathers recently together, Edgar as well. So he always was quoting his father. And I remember him telling me how he survived because he got this ability to sleep, and since then there is nothing that I love and admire as much as sleeping, because that's also something that can save your life. So I wanted him to win because of all of the things and the award, and because of the things that I learned from him as a writer and as a friend and as a survivor. And so I want to talk about Edgar for me. I was back then young journalist back in 2000. By the way, it's one of the frustrating things. We go to the conferences. Sometimes we are together because we're talking about the politics, but usually Edgar goes to the young Israeli voices, although I'm younger than him, and I find myself alone in the other Israeli voices, some neglected conference. But I remember that moment when I was a journalist, and that was my first war, I would say, that I witnessed as a grown-up. And it was 2000. I was living in Jerusalem. My daughter was just 1 month old, and everything collapsed during the first days of the second Intifada. We became enemies. It's the first time that I see how people can be segregated. How just 1 week before the Intifada, I was drinking beers and listening to jazz, Israeli Jewish friends in Ramallah, and now we are enemies. And in the media and the mainstream and the streets of Israel, it's just, yes, we have to it's war. And everything was collapsing. It's the first time as a journalist, back then I was just 25, that we received a phone call threatening our daughter's life, because she was just in Hebrew, of course, and my editor telling me it's about time to leave Jerusalem. I went to my parents in Tira, and again, the earth was shaking, and 13 Palestinian citizens, Israeli citizens, were killed by snipers. For me, it was demonstration for our rights. We thought we live in a democracy. And I remember everything was collapsing, and I was just crying because of my citizenship, because I always still consider myself as a citizen for a place that might be a better place. And I was writing about the funerals of the young men killed by snipers, and I was in Nazareth. I was so frustrated, losing everything, thinking that that's it. I'll never go back to my Jewish nice neighborhood in Jerusalem. I will stay in Tira. And there is no hope. Everything was collapsing, the Oslo agreements, the peace agreement. There's a war going on, and we are the enemy. All the media is supporting the war. And then I remember after the funeral in Nazareth, I was sitting there, and there stops a small bus, and I see Etgar Keret, that I never met before, the writer that I admire his writing, just coming off the bus to take part of that funeral of the young Palestinians killed in Nazareth. And then I think that was just amazing. I said, yes, there's still something that we can do. I never approached him, of course, back then, because we never met back then. I was not yet a writer or a known writer, just a young journalist. And then back when everything collapsed again, another war, when I couldn't stand it anymore, the Gaza war. Again, Edgar and Shira stand against all the odds, against the majority of the Israelis being threatened and standing for their values. I hope those are the human values. I'm not sure Jewish, Palestinian, Muslim values, but the values of Etgar Keret. Stand and talk about civilians being killed, and asking to recognize the suffering also for Palestinians, kids being killed in Gaza. And that was very brave, and that's why I'm so thankful. And that's because people just like Edgar and Shira and Lev, that I can think that we can be neighbors, and probably one day my kids will be equal and maybe get in love a little bit with Lev as well. So thank you so much, Etgar, and brachot and mazal tov. Thank you.